So today we're going to keep talking about percentages and proportions and all of that stuff. And today we're specifically going to talk about when an amount is going up or going down, being able to tell what percentage of that original amount it increased or decreased by. And what we're calling that is the percent of change. So this top part of the notes has been filled out for you. So take a second to write down what it says. It says a percent of change is the ratio, that word keeps coming back to us, of the amount of change to the original amount. So we've got a little formula down here. My percent of change equals, and then they have a ratio for us, the amount that the change was over what the original amount was. And then down here it talks about the different types of change we have. So like I said, we're talking about if it goes up or down. So if the original amount goes up to something new, we're going to call that a percent increase. If the original amount goes down, we're calling that a percentage decrease, which is kind of intuitive. Increase means up, decrease means down. So let's take a look at a couple examples. So the first one says, Beth bought a $75 pair of jeans for $60. Find the percent of change and classify it as a percent increase or decrease. So right off the bat, we should be able to tell that this is a decrease because the amount of money that Beth is spending originally would have been $75 on these jeans, but it went down to $60. So if I use this little equation that we've got up here, I have to do a little bit of math to find out what this amount of change is. So one way that you can do that is I can start with the amount of money that I'm actually paying. So that's what I pay. And subtract from that the original amount. Now, if I do that, a way that it kind of helps you to set it up like that, what I'm paying minus the original, is because notice when I do that math, it's going to give me a negative amount. Negative implies that decrease. So if you can't tell just by looking at those numbers, which normally you should be able to, but if you can't, that's kind of an indicator of what, if it's a positive, it's going to be an increase. If it's a negative, it's a decrease. So then if I go up here and use that formula, my percent change equals that change amount, which in this case is negative 15, over the original amount, which in this case was 75. Throw that into the calculator and it's going to give you negative 0.20. And hopefully that will jump out to you as being 20% as a decimal. And since it's a negative number, I'm saying it's a 20% decrease. So this is kind of backwards from some of the other stuff that we were doing before. Before it was saying the price is being reduced by 20%. What's the new price? They're giving us those pieces now. The thing that they're not giving us is what the discount is. So I'm basically finding the discount here. So let's do a couple more. I want to look at numbers 1 and 3. So number 1 gives us, John went from weighing 140 pounds to 155 pounds. They want me to find the percent of change and classify as a percent increase or decrease. So without even looking at the word problem, let's kind of do this pay minus original to see if we get a positive or a negative number. Obviously, in this case, it's not really what I am originally paying in the context of this problem. It's going to be John's final weight. So John's final weight is 155 because he went from 140 to 155. His original weight was 140. So that's giving me my change. And then in the denominator, I'm going to put his original weight, which is 140. Once again, I'll do that math out. It's going to give me 115 over 140. Sorry, 15 over 140. Notice it's positive, so I can classify this as an increase. when I do that math, it's going to give me kind of an ugly decimal. So we're going to round it. And it gives me 0.107. And it tells me round to the nearest tenth of a percent. So remember, if I get a decimal, you move that decimal 2 places to the right. So this is actually a 10.7% increase. Let me rewrite that so you can actually read it. Sounds a little rough. 10.7%. Okay, now let's go on to number 3. Last year, the debate team had 25 members. This year, the club has 18. They want to figure out what that percent increase or decrease was. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with what I ended up with. I ended with 18. And from that, I'm going to take away how many I started with. We started with 25 members. And I'm going to divide that by the number I started with. So when I do that, I'm going to get -7 over 25. So we already know right away that this is going to be a decrease because I have a negative number. Throw that into Desmos, and you'll get -0.28. I'll move my decimal place over, and we have found that from year to year, the debate team has seen a 28% decrease in members. So I want you guys to try number 2 and 4, and then get started on another activity that you're going to kind of be practicing this stuff.